Welcome to the LEC studio in Berlin, Germany, host of the World's 2019 play-in stage. Fans are hyped today, and Worlds is the arena where you can start your legend. Tonight, a new wave hits this historic tournament as Turkey's Royal Youth and the LCK's Damwon Gaming make their debut. Hello, everybody. I'm QuickShot, joined by Ender and Spawn. It is day 2 of play-ins, and the band is reunited.
Oh, it doesn't get better than this. 2 back-to-back days, but we got 6 new teams today, which I'm so excited to get into.
Yeah, absolutely. And if yesterday was any precursor for how Worlds is going to go this year, you really cannot predict how these teams are going to be able to perform in this first play-in stage.
I mean, yesterday literally had everything. We had a variance in playstyles, we had upset wins, everybody was on edge for the start, and thankfully, day 1 delivered. I'm hoping to see more. Let's talk about some of the surprises from yesterday in Group A. Unicorns of Love taking down Clutch.
Yeah, they just came right off the bat and were willing to attack Clutch Gaming in the early game. I think Ananasic really led them through this, but on that day, they were the better team against Clutch.
Yeah, absolutely. And the preparation that they came into that game with was just incredibly impressive to witness. But the surprises didn't stop there. Mammoth were then able to get the better of UOL, and this group really just turned on its head.
Yeah, it's just this circle, right? Everyone beats everyone, because at the end of the day, it was Clutch that took down Mammoth. So we come into tomorrow looking at 3 teams that are all tied 1-1 in the standings.
So the question is, by laws of transitive properties,
no one's the best.
Who is actually the best? Because look, 1-1, obviously these teams will be playing tomorrow to conclude who advances to the knockout stage. We assume Clutch will be. We assume
Absolutely.
Clutch after their second game is a likely, but then who joins them?
Well, I think the thing about Clutch was that they said they had the recipe for it, right? They were happy with the scaling option. They were going to make Mammoth and UOL play towards them, and we saw that the burden of execution was much too high for Mammoth to be able to get that done. However, I do think that Mammoth showed a lot of things, especially through their mid laner triple, that potentially allows them to get that upper edge over the Unicorn.
Yeah, and I think just in terms of like team-wide fundamentals, I actually thought Mammoth outperformed the Unicorns of Love. But for me, I still think it'll be UOL to sneak in as number 2 in this group, because I have a lot of faith in their jungler, Ananasic. When he's on early game playmaking, he is going to carry. The Echo wasn't it for him, but I definitely think tomorrow he's going to come out.
Oh man, you've got all these precursors. We're going to talk about Echo and Ananasic later on Countdown. Let's turn our attention to Group B, because things played out basically as expected. Splice went 2-0 on the day. I think out of all the teams yesterday, Splice to me were the best performing day 1 team.
Yeah, absolutely. And they came into Worlds with questions, right? Dropping a playoff series versus Rogue, 3-2 versus Origin, where Origin were using a substitute jungler, but none of that seems to matter to Splice. They were able to come onto Summoner's Rift, take care of business, and Humanoid was a player to me that I thought actually stepped up and excelled, especially his game versus Isurus Gaming on the LeBlanc, was able to completely smash Sayer in that mid lane, meant that that early roam to the bottom lane definitely was not on the cards, and Splice right now look like the best team we've seen at Worlds Play-ins.
All around, it just seemed like Splice was vastly superior to these other 2 teams. You know, they took care of Dead FM relatively quickly. Isurus, even though it was a slower, more drawn-out game, it still felt very dominant from them. So I think Splice is going undefeated in play-ins.
Yeah, and the thing is that there are young members on this Splice lineup, right, that should be feeling the pressure coming into Worlds, but it was actually Isurus Gaming and Detonation Focus Me that were making a lot of these mistakes, and it was the veteran players, you know, Sayer and Oddie botching a turret dive on Seros in that game. That was one of the ugliest dives I think I've seen.
That was the Karma bottom lane, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, then on one hand, Seros did a great job sidestepping. On the other hand, a whole bunch of skill shots went wide.
If you miss 5 Rise Qs, you're just a bad play, Trevor.
But the thing is, it's interesting because Isurus and Detonation Focus Me, to me, was kind of like the shakiest game of the day. There was a lot of individual misplays. And one of the things that we spoke about off air was the pressure that these teams and players are feeling. You have 4 games to make it to the knockout stage. There's so little room for error. It feels like Isurus has the advantage and taking that second seed, but they will be playing a number 1 seed next week in the knockouts.
Yeah, and both of these teams are veterans, but I think there is something to be said, you know, returning to Worlds on multiple occasions and the pressure to now get it done this year as you're the super team. And I think that holds especially true for Isurus Gaming. However, if they just do slow it down a pace, you know, I don't think they have what it takes to beat Splice now, but it should be enough to take care of Dead FM.
Another huge thing for me is we're coming in on a new patch. A lot of these teams haven't played since 9.16. We're on 9.19 now, and you have to come in. You don't have any, experience. You don't have other teams playing. You're not a group stage team that gets all this information. So you need to come in with a good strategy. And I say you must play your own style, because if you don't, you might just have the wrong read and have to play catch up the whole time.
But DFM did that, right? They played the KL top lane. They tried to play their own style. It still wasn't enough to get past it. Orangulis in the bottom lane was able to put on that carry performance.
The thing that I love is like Clutch actually said in both of their interviews that we had throughout the day that they had a slightly wrong read. Game 1 wasn't super great. They pivoted for Game 2, and it was significant improvement. Talking about the patch, talking about the meta, 6 games, we got a small taste of what it's going to look like. We saw a couple of permaban champions. Let's start with Kiana and Pantheon not making their way into play. It's the flexible AD powerhouses on 919.
Yeah, you pretty much always have to ban these two champions, especially on red side. I think we saw 6 Pantheon bans on red side yesterday, which is just insane. That tells me this champion is by far and away the best champion on patch 919. You think about it. The early lane pressure, the skirmishing power, the global presence in a metagame that is very fast and and it's very important to have strong matchups. If you can flex it to just about every role in the game, that has to be very high on everyone's list.
And we've already seen that Kiana, whilst primarily a mid laner, also shares some of those traits, can go into the jungle. And I think that we've seen a couple of interesting top laners, like the Tristana, that potentially Kiana can also provide the assassin to as well. So potential a third lane that we'll be able to see Kiana played in. And in best of ones, both of these champions are going to excel. They're both lethality users. They both get out of lane early and roam around the map, be able to take over the game. I don't think in best of ones, this is when you try and see if you have a strategy that can beat either of these. However, in the best of 5 stage, that could be the case.
The terrifying thing is, you have to have a strategy to beat it, but you also have to be brave enough to let it through, see how that goes. Like, I think back to the previous Worlds metas and patches, and when you have those 100% ban champions, at some point, someone tries it. We were discussing Mordekaiser several years ago.
Yeah, I think we're talking like LGD. You say bravery, I say just trolling, but
have to see.
Difference of opinion.
The proof is in the pudding, and we'll see. Let's move on to some of the other picks from yesterday. We've selected 5 of the most or the highest presence champions. Starting with Gangplank up in the top lane, saw him, a little bit surprised to see how much of him, and there was discussion around like blind pick tops and how good or bad they did, but let's start with GP.
I think generally GP, because he's so versatile, is a very powerful blind pick top. He can just do about anything. You think about his laning phase, he's a very good weak side top laner because of the orange. He can absorb ganks, he can use his ultimate to clear out waves and prevent turret dives from coming through, but also his passive packs so much punch in the laning phase, he can go toe-to-toe in 1v1s against a lot of the strong lane bully champions.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that as long as he gets access to a creep wave, a lot of these melee matchups, he can actually stack up grass procs really quickly and start cashing them in and start getting the lane pushing in his favor. He also adds a lot to ganks with the level 6 as well. So I think that he's one of these champions that kind of is slept on, but we haven't seen the hard counters yet. We haven't seen the Lucian played into him. We haven't seen the Vladimir. I think Tristana would be another one of those lanes that would absolutely style on a Gangplank. So until we really see the hard counter picks to shut him down in lane, I'm not completely sold on the champion.
I love that you say Lucian, and any astute viewers that were with us on Countdown yesterday will remember the 90-50-10. Which I'm hoping comes true. Let's turn our attention to the bottom lane. Let's start with Xayah. Xayah seeing a lot of presence. Kai'Sa as well. I know when we're talking about it, surprised you a little bit, Spawn. But we haven't seen as many majors as maybe we were anticipating.
Yeah, absolutely. Because whilst there were 2 big 80 carries when we came into Worlds, we thought that both of them potentially had counters in the majors in the bottom lane, in the Cassiopeia, in the Syndra. Both of these champions, 500 to 550 range, and I thought they could be shut down. However, it seems that their continual presence of the team fighting 80 carries is still super high.
Yeah, and when you look at it, these champions did both receive nerfs, but they weren't like massive nerfs. I don't feel like it was like cooldown reduction on the ultimate for Xayah. So there's larger windows where they are punishable, but still do what they do very, very well. Another honorable mention next to the Xayah is the Rakan. That duo was 100% presence yesterday, meaning it was picked or banned in every single game, and that's something we're going to continue to see for the rest of the tournament.
It also suits the meta, the initiation tools. I think, especially when we get to group stages and the amount of support players that like that style of champion. But look, you were promising me Syndra, you were promising me Cassio in the bot lane, we were talking majors, Jaime got locked in on game 1. So is it just a group thing, or do you think there's still room more to see these majors making their way?
I think we're definitely going to see more of it. I think not every bot laner can pilot these mages, so it depends on which teams are actually in the game, whether or not we see it. But we also saw Syndra played in the mid lane, multiple Syndra bans as well, so this is a very powerful flex pick, and we throw around the word flex pick, you know it's going to be a champion that teams look after.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this just has the best gank setup of a lot of the mid laners we're seeing right now. And whilst we have the delayed setup coming out of things like Echo, having that ability just to be able to open up the combo yourself as a mid laner is going to be important.
You just said Echo. You just said Echo. You two argued all day yesterday about this pick. So let's add some additional context. Is Echo good or bad?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not completely sold on the pick, but Vedi did raise some good points on cooldown last night. We're missing a teamfight AP jungler now that Silas has been nerfed. Echo can fill that void. His river control is very good. We haven't seen him play that style. It's been more gank heavy. So I think that these teams maybe have a slight misread on what his actual strengths are. And I was watching it run around in solo queue last night. It was doing a bit of work, but I still think in situations like the dives, you would prefer to have something like an Elise, like a Gragas.
Well, it's interesting because I actually think these teams are also just not using it to the fullest extent, because you look at these situations, Anastic trying to dive top lane, the W comes out early.
Yep.
There's no setup for that W. It's a super easy ability to just dodge away from. It's a long wind up on that. So if you don't have like hard CC to help lock it down and make sure you can layer that spell on top of another one, then he's not going to be as useful. You also have to consider that he's very good at skirmishing and taking these chip fights, as opposed to the instant all-in engage, which when you have a lot of champions around him that are about winning lane and not forcing fights, he's just not going to find a good place in those games.
And to be fair, it wasn't even like small misplays of, you know, they need a couple more champions. There were some turret dives where it was like, if you just ult earlier, or if you just run through the turret, you're not going to die in this situation. So Nerve certainly plagued Echo in particular yesterday.
I do want to take a look at one particular performance on Echo, though, because while he couldn't master Echo in the jungle, on Rek'Sai, Ananasik made Clutch feel the Queen's wrath. Ender, take a look why.
Yeah, so I want to take a look at some of Ananasik's early game pathing in his game yesterday, the opening game where he took down Clutch Gaming in that game one. Now, starting it off, we talked a little bit about compositions and how to play the Echo. I'm focused on the Rek'Sai in this case over here, because looking at these two compositions, you actually notice 3 winning lane matchups for the Unicorns of Love and a stronger jungle matchup in the Rek'Sai over the Echo. Now, I know that Clutch bot lane got the advantage in that lane. I think that came to some misplays on the bottom half of the map from Unicorns. But basically what this boils down to is that Lyra doesn't have a lot of options when he can play this game. So you'll actually see that once we get into it, the map is going to be split up by Ananasik. Because he's on the stronger jungle matchup with the pushing top and mid lanes, he gets to decide to take his 3 camps, hit level 3, and then run straight into the enemy jungle here. Now what this ends up doing is, as he's seen on the ward on the top side running up into that blue buff side of the jungle, Lyra then must reply and go for the bottom side of the map invade. At the same time, Huni was pushing in that top lane in this matchup and lost his ward because Ananasik was able to clear it away. This makes top lane basically unplayable. The lane is pushing out from Huni, and he knows that Rek'Sai is on the top side of the map, so it really disables him from doing virtually anything in that matchup. Now, the invade will continue here from Ananasik, where he takes the blue buff as well as those wolves, while Lyra attempts a gank in the mid lane. Now, the gank in the mid lane doesn't actually work out, so Lyra will run up towards this topside scuttle crab to try and contest Ananasik, but again, he has losing top lane. Mid lane, even though he calls Demonte over, it's not going to work out. So Ananasik tries to go for this bot side invade, or bot side river control instead, and this is where things get a little hairy for him. You see Vulcan was able to make that rotation up into the river, and this is something that Ananasik will do a lot. He is a greedy jungler when it comes to trying picking up a lot of minions and going for these fights inside of the river, which can harm him, but in this case, he is able to escape and will go back to clear his own jungle. Now, because we're 5 minutes on the clock, both those topside camps have respawned for these two junglers, but they haven't gotten their recall off just yet. So it's a little bit more difficult for them to find the clear. And I would just like to give a quick tutorial on how to play the Echo here, because Lyra starts up the Raptor camp without his Q on cooldown, then tries to kill the big raptor. Stop doing that. You're going to end up dying. He ends up not being able to clear this camp. You need to use the passive healing from your talisman and hit all those targets. So wait for your spells to be up, use your passive, auto all those small ones so you can kill them on the first clear, and your time is going to be much, much easier in the jungle. Instead, because this happens, Ananasik, who wants to go for yet another invade play, knowing that the red buff is spawning, actually just gets a 2-for-1 deal. The raptors have spawned, and now, for some reason, Lyra runs topside to pick up his Gromp camp. Gromp camp, being level 1 and never cleared in this game, gives him significantly less experience, and he's on the wrong side of the map for when this invade play happens. And this is a greedy invade play from the jungler Ananasik. You'll see that both mid lane was pushing out for Damonte. He'd actually walked down, and Echo could be in the area as well. So this play was actually something that could have been easily punished. And that's what I mean when he gets greedy. But when it works out for him, he will build up massive leads. You see another crab spawn. He's able to run to the top side and find a gank because guess what? He knows that none of Lyra's jungle camps are up and available. So Lyra must go for this play. It turns into a double kill now for Ananasik, and he's able to build on his lead even more because guess what's spawning? The blue buff in the enemy side of the jungle is going to be coming up. Ananasik gets all 4 buffs on the second rotation on the map, is able to go back into his topside jungle and clear away those camps as well. And at the end of it all, it is a massive lead here for Ananasik. It is level 6 on Lyra, it is level 8 on the Unicorn jungler, and it doesn't get any easier than that. He was able to use that lead to take that game and to get that upset against Clutch in game 1.
So a 2-for-1 discussion on both Rek'Sai and Echo. To summarize, if I will, you can't put pineapple on pizza and Echo, but you can on Rek'Sai.
You can put it on pizza. It's good on pizza.
Okay, so
you should put pineapple on pizza.
Pineapple goes on pizza and
Yes.
Rek'Sai. Great. For the first time ever, a Korean team takes to this play-in stage, and it is no surprise to anyone that Damwon is considered a heavy favorite in their group. We're turning our attention to today, and we'll be covering Group C and Group D. So let's start with Damwon. Let's start with Group D. We assume they will win play-ins groups. We assume they will win play-ins knockouts. What I ask you two today, how far will Damwon go in the World Championship?
This is a really fun conversation, Trevor, because you consider you have 3 sort of favorites in the tournament right now. You have G2, Fun Plus Phoenix, and SKT. And after that, the field is a little bit open. And during the draw show, we actually thought Damwon might be one of the dark horses of the tournament to make a deep run. I think you could actually put this team as making top 5 because of the way that they have such strong solo lanes and a very creative jungler in his early pathing as well. This is a team that will go far.
So who's the other 5th team in there?
That's the question,
top
right?
3? You said top 5. Are they the 4th? Are they the 5th?
I think the competition then would be with an RNG, an IG if they were able to shake off their pretty rough summer performances and go to those high highs, or maybe even a Fnatic.
No Griffin included in that one.
Spawn, we are still in play-ins groups.
Yep.
And we'll get time to discuss that later. Let's talk about the group that Damwon are in, because we have made a lot of assumptions, right?
Absolutely.
We're assuming they're going to win groups. We're assuming they're going to win knockouts, and that is obviously the favorite. Let's look at Royal Youth as well as Flamengo, 2 teams that have the unenviable task of being the first play-in teams ever to compete against the LCK 3rd seeds.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you have a look at the strength of this group, you can't really look past the TCL. Out of all the emerging regions, Turkey behind the VCS have shown the consistency that we expect out of one of those regions that's looking to take the next step. So I think that Royal Youth really are that team, especially given the fact that they play around their top laner in Armut. They were able to go through Supermassive in the finals and be able to beat them out. I think this is a team that has actually a really good shot of coming second in this group and then doing damage in a best of 5.
Yeah, and for me, I look at this group and I see a lot of actually strong top laners. You have Nuguri, you have Armut, as you mentioned, and then Robo sort of the odd man out for me. I think that this group will be heavily decided by the solo lanes, and in that case, I think it will go in this order: Damwon, Royal, Flamengo.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Flamengo, who are a team that I really enjoy watching play, you know, the aggression that comes out of BRTT in that bottom lane, this is just one of those groups that is a group of death. Like the CB LoL,
so tough.
Flamengo really is paying the price for a couple of poor performances out of CB LoL. This could very easily be a 0-4 group, when I think Flamengo in other groups could actually do damage. So I really hope that they can show us something and maybe buck the trend of the top lane playstyle and get something rolling early game in the bottom lane.
I'm really excited to see what Damwon do. They will be playing the first game of the day, and also to see what the new young LCK players do on the international stage. There has been a little bit of a trend of new, young teams from the LCK underperforming to expectations of the region. And I'm not saying they will. I'm just reminding people that that has happened.
Yeah, absolutely. But none of the teams that failed in the LCK to get out of groups and put Damwon in this situation are actually here at this year's Worlds. It's a brand new lineup coming through. Damwon actually took second in LCK Summer. That's why teams are so hot on this. And I think that this is a lineup that kind of has that not arrogance, but that self-confidence to really be able to make clean runs through this stage of the tournament.
Confident play in League of Legends right now, whether brave or not, definitely seems to work. Okay, let's turn our attention to Group C. This is definitely one of the more interesting groups for me in terms of none of these teams truly have super high profile. There's a lot of new players, a lot of new names to a degree, and expectations, especially for Hong Kong Attitude, are dropping more and more, as is the LMSs.
And Trevor, we've probably been to these, you know, the 10-year reunion of high schools. Unfortunately, Andy, you're probably going to have to wait another 10 years before you get
I think I need 7 more years, Spawn.
But this is a GPL reunited, and this is one of those situations where potentially it's actually the VCS now emerging as a favorites to come out of this group.
Yeah, it's really surprising because out of all the plans groups, this is the one where you say probably has the highest likelihood that a Pool 1 team doesn't come out on top. I think VCS's low-key esports plays a really fun style that we're used to seeing from the VCS, where they actually just come in with their own views on how to play the game. This team went for multiple lane swaps in their playoff series to try and split that map, flip it around, and go for these crazy moves that a lot of teams will have never played against coming into this playing stage.
And also just a different priority on champions. You know, we kept talking about Kaiser and Zaya, but Celebrity, he loves himself some Tristana. And this is a champion that is able to open up the map early. And I expect Loki to play for kills as opposed to that objective-focused game style. And if they go really quick, that is going to upset the LMS team.
Now, of course, the expectation from us here on the show is that Loki are somewhat of the favorites in here. Let's touch on Hong Kong Attitude as well as Mega. And for HKA, and more importantly for me than just the players or the team, it's the LMS that is very interesting. The LMS has been on a steady, consistent decline for a long time now.
Yeah, absolutely. And as an LMS fan, it's kind of heartbreaking to see, you know, Flash Wolves and AHQ now go down that step. J-Team, kind of the last remaining dominant team within the region. Everyone else is sitting around 500 during the domestic season. And already this team in Hong Kong Attitude has failed to secure first place in a group play-in stage like this. It was against the TCL. This team, in my opinion, isn't even as strong as that Hong Kong Attitude team. So it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be tough for them. I still think that they will make it out of this group because, on the other hand, the 3rd seed Mega coming in, we don't think is going to be as strong as these other 2 regions. They have made some improvements, they think, moving Lloyd out of the bot lane position into the jungle to bring in their double Korean bot lane.
Yep.
So they make these swaps to try and make it work.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the schedule very quickly. We'll see what happens when all of these teams hit the Rift. The action does start with the TCL's Royal Youth looking for a massive upset, if they can, against Damwon Gaming. Then Mega and Hong Kong Attitude will be squaring up shortly after in Game 2. There'll be 3 more matches before we close out the day with a Flamingo versus Royal Youth. Correction, Hong Kong versus Low-Key. So let's take a look at our first match of the day and dive into it. Damwon Gaming took the LCK by storm. They're ready to take on the world. And this is a new wave, new players, new team, new to the international stage. And one of the players we're very, very excited about is Nuguri.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a new style for the LCK. This is much more of the G2 light, as VODS put it, you know, the crash, bang, take over the early game. And I think that Nuguri is one of those players that you put him on an island, you isolate him, he does work. You throw Canyon up there with some creative pathing, it only gets worse.
Yeah, it's the solo lanes, it's the entire top side of the map for Damwon Gaming because Nuguri loves just kill you over and over in the laning phase. One of the best top laners coming into the World Championship. A lot of people are hyping this guy up, and for very, very good reason. He is going to be the best top laner for sure in the play-ins, and any player going up against him is going to have to try to do their best just to hold on.
And the thing about this Damwon lineup is they kind of have something for everyone. I was reading a thread this morning and it had Dopa's opinion that Showmaker is pre-20 minutes the best mid laner in the LCK. This is a guy that is so hyped up, 19 years old, and has all of that swagger of a young new player.
I absolutely love all the discussion around the mid laners from the LCK and who ranks above whom. We'll get to some of those discussions next week, some of Nuguri's stats. Let's turn our attention to the representatives from the TCL Royal Youth. This is another team of fresh faces. They beat Supermassive to qualify for the very first World Championship, and it was a big surprise. This was a young roster, it's a new team, and they impressed in the TCL.
It surprised everyone because you look at the names that they were actually going up against. You have Wolf Zeitnot in the bottom lane. What a power 2v2. And they're going up against Supermassive as well. Everyone knows Supermassive. Hardly anyone on the international stage knows Royal Youth. This was a team of almost complete nobodies other than Pilot and his small stints over in the LCK. And they come in, they challenge the superstars of the region, get that huge win, and now they come in as many fresh faces to the international stage.
Yeah, they certainly do. And once again, this is a team that bucks the international trend of the bottom lane dives, and Closer will play around his top laner, Armut, and be able to get things done. Game 5, you know, the clutch situation, they turn to the top laners, Jace. They're able to push in. They're able to get that big advantage. Pilot's still a good insurance policy. Nothing really changes with Jin Air 80 carries, but it really is early game focus around the top side of the map.
Now let's talk about if it's going to be top side of the map, and we've got Armut versus Nuguri. Like, how do you guys anticipate this matchup to go, and how do you think Royal Youth could win this game? Reminder that Damwon are obviously heavy favorites, but if there were a game plan to go into, you know, what direction do you attack?
I mean, me personally, I'm looking into the top lane, as I said, in this group.
Yeah.
I think that the duo of Armut and Closer is a really strong tool that this team can utilize. And if you're able to get a counter pick for Armut specifically, we saw a lot of early picks yesterday for top laners. If you can save counter pick, put them in a good matchup, put jungle pressure up there as well, you can try to break open that lane.
Yeah, and I just think that you have to kind of go for it in this matchup. We saw yesterday that Mammoth had one very aggressive top lane game and then played Karma into Huni because they wanted to try and shut down and nullify the lane, and it just did not work. Unfortunately, in the current map state, you know, with turret plates, with all the early game focus, you have to go fire with fire. I want to see him take the Jace. I want to see him try and step up to the plate and have a really breakout performance, because you got to remember, sure, Nugger is all that, but if you're able to have a good matchup, this can put the young man from the TCL on the international stage.
I want to explore that idea. I want to explore that idea. If you can put up a good matchup. Now, this is the first time that the LCK have ever appeared in the play-in stage, right? Because, based on LPL success over the last 2 years. These teams and players are the first ever that will get to compete against an LCK third seed. This is both fantastic and exciting if you're a pro, and terrifying if you want to advance. So, you know, what are these guys going in terms of their mentality?
Well, is it terrifying if you have to advance? Because you know that you can't get down one in the best of 5. And
it's the best news they've ever gotten.
This is the best group, in my opinion, you can draw if you think you're going to come out of group 2nd seed. So that's what I would be thinking. You know, let's get it done versus Flamengo, and then let's take our shots versus Damwon. Let's make a name for ourselves. Let's try and worry some of these other seed 1 teams that we're going to come up against in the best of 5.
And when we're looking, you know, we've talked so much about these two top laners. Looking at the stats, looking at their champion pools, they play to dominate in the laning phase. They want winning matchups. They want to push you in. They want to bully you. They want to kill you. These two people clashing against each other. Imagine if you could kill Nuguri. Imagine if you could solo kill Nuguri.
What do they do?
What do they do?
Well,
I would love to see it.
I mean, we've seen it before. I just cast my mind back to like INTZ versus EDG. Revolta running into Clearlove's jungle, killing him over the red buff, taking over the early game. This has happened before. I'm not saying it's going to happen today, because I think Damwon's much better than that iteration of EDG. But if you can do it, you've made it.
I know. It would be amazing if it happened. It would be beautiful to watch. And it'll be up to Damwon to prove that all of our assumptions are correct, and for Royal Youth to surprise us. It is time to talk to the top laner with Law.
Thank you very much, guys. Laure here, and joining me for this very first interview is Armut from the Royal Youth. Thank you very much for being with me today. You're going to play your first game, and you qualified to Worlds after winning your first title as a team in the TCL. So tell me about the pride of being the TCL representative this year.
Like, I'm really proud. My team also same. We are happy to represent our country. We beat Supermassive at finals 3-2. Like, we never did it before. So we are really proud, and we are ready to make our country proud.
And that was a very intense series for you guys. 5 games when you had a very dominant year for the whole season. So tell me about the strength you have coming into the play-in stage against Damwon and Flamingo, because we know that the TCL is known for being a very bloody and early game-oriented region.
Yeah, like, I think our early game is really aggressive. If we finish the games fast, I think we can win every team. We can also lose to some teams. Like, I think Damwon is really strong. I think we can beat Flamingo 2-0 kind of easy. Damwon will be hard. They have like Nuguri, Showmakers. They are kind of best. Canyon also. Like, it will be really hard series, but we will try something else.
Well, actually, tell me about playing your very first Worlds game against Damwon Gaming, because usually we don't have any LCK teams in the play-in. This is a first, so what do you feel?
Yeah, I feel like they shouldn't be in play-ins, to be honest. Like, they are so strong as a roster, as a team also. Like, it's fine, since we get them here, we will not face them in best of 5 if we make out of from our groups. So I think this is also good news. Bad news is like they might solo kill us. Like Nuguri and Showmaker is like really dangerous. So I'm kind of happy, also not happy same time, you know.
Tell me about what you think about Nuguri as a player.
Like he's best top laner in the world, that's what they say. I think I agree. But we will see about that today.
Well, I wish you good luck on that. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for
Thank
the
you.
interview. Now back to you guys.